But I'm looking over at Mel for some confirmation of this or not. Maybe Lawyer Tillman is their guy.
Or Peebles. I think those two are your picks here. They need a wide receiver. They needed Metcalf, obviously, to give them that skill position running back, but they need somebody opposite Langborn, and I think it'll either be Lawyer Tillman or Danny Peebles with this pick.
That's a high price. Your number one selection is something to be prized, cherished, nurtured, and shopped around very carefully, and to trade it as part of a package for a high second-round pick right here.
Well, the way they figure
Tom Brock's, I tell you, stuck to his guns if he did, and worked himself a pretty good deal.
Well, he knows he has Kosar, and he doesn't have any weapons. Now he has Metcalf. Now if you go with Lawyer Tillman or Danny Peebles, Tillman is 228 pounds. He runs a 4.5. He's 6'4". He's a great player. He should have been a mid-first-round pick. You look at Peebles, he's a 4.3 sprinter, which is exactly what they're looking for. So it's going to be one of those two players, I'd say right now. If I'm wrong, fine. But if I were the Cleveland Browns, and I'm going to make a trade of this magnitude, the only player that I would really consider, even over Peebles, is Lawyer Tillman.
We'll see if it's Tillman. Ernie Accorsi, the man who outsmarted the NFL to the point where he's had to revise the supplemental draft, has worked himself a big deal today, and we'll see what he does with it, Chris.
All right, Bobby, so we're guessing it's probably Lawyer Tillman. Let's backtrack a little bit. We just saw Dan Patrick and Barry Sanders, and we want to bring in now Bino Cook. You know, Barry, he's a true junior, and Bino, him going into this draft, it was potentially a very touchy situation. Your thoughts on a true junior entering the NFL draft?
Well, I don't think Pete had any choice, and I think it's one of the many reasons he quit. He knows you can't win in the courts today in anything, and I think it's, you know, I think players are going to be able to come out. Pete Rozelle said a number of years ago, and I don't worry about the players at the skill positions coming out, but it's the offensive linemen, defensive linemen. But I think the courts are going to, you know, if it goes to a court case, Tex Schramm wants to fight it and go to court, and we know what the courts do today. The idiots broke up the phone company. The one thing that worked in America, we got a bunch of judges and lawyers running around, broke it up. The draft is a fair way. It's worked through the years. And I just think if it does go to court, no chance. More kids are going to come out. However, more kids are going today to play college, to play sports, not worried about studies. And maybe it's time that they want to come out, let them.
Bino, how do the colleges feel? You're in close touch with them, obviously. How do they feel? I mean, they know the NFL really had no choice in this move. I mean, do they really get annoyed and kind of disallow scouts on campus, that sort of thing?
No, I think that they might get mad at agents. But they know they're not that upset. I've only talked to maybe about 20 coaches, and they realize it's going to, you know, it's the way it's going to be if kids want to leave. But they don't think that many kids will want to leave. They truly don't think that many kids are going to leave, and that's probably the case.
All right, Bino, let's go to the podium. Here's Cleveland's pick, of which they surrendered number 1 in 1990. If you talked about lawyers, maybe this is Lawyer Tillman.
Cleveland, on the choice just obtained from Green Bay, has selected Lawyer Tillman, wide receiver, Auburn.
Yeah, for them to spend a number 1 next year, it had to be a unique player. And we talked a long time ago in this draft that Lawyer Tillman, the big guy from Auburn, was a unique player, and you know, that's why they spent the number 1. Great size. I mean, 6'4", 222, but we're talking a wide receiver here, not a tight end. 93 receptions, 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns. His size outstanding, his speed outstanding. Obviously, he's strong, and what you're going to have is some very good cornerbacks, some excellent players who just may have trouble being big enough to guard a guy on the outside like a Lawyer Tillman, Tommy and Joe. I mean, no matter how good a cover guy you are, if the man you're trying to cover is almost as fast as you are, just about as fast, and is bigger, that's trouble, right?
Size-wise, he's going to offer a lot of problems, and the way Webster Slaughter has performed in the last couple of years, with the exception of the injury that he had last year, this kid will get a lot of single coverage, and yeah, it'll make for a very difficult time for even defensive safeties. When this guy gets into the middle of the football field.
Yeah, they'll be Tillman and Metcalf with their picks, and I'll tell you, Cleveland was very uptight about this draft, and I think, Joe, they have to be very pleased with the way things went. They made the moves on the spot, seeing who was available. They've got to be pleased as heck to get these guys.
I think they're pleased, but it also tells us the direction that Cleveland wants to go in front of. The direction they want to go to. You know, you got Minifield and Dixon, two probably best quarter combinations in the National Football League. So Tillman's going to have a lot of work against the best defensive backs, although he's a big guy working against tough little people. But Cleveland now, I think, with Bernie Kosar back, they got close a couple of years ago putting the ball in the air. They got Metcalf, they got Tillman. We're going to, you got Mouse Davis now in Detroit. The 1989 season could be a place where people are going to have to duck because there are going to be a lot of footballs in the air coming out of that Central Division.
Cleveland drafted pretty much all defense last year in the beginning of the draft, and they realized that they got to win now. They've been knocking at the door, and they don't want to be a San Diego. They knocked at the door, and they knocked at the door. At any rate, we'll talk more about that. Eric Clemens by in a moment. First, here's how the positions have gone.
Today's small cars are tough.
Live and exclusive coverage for the 10th consecutive year. Tampa Bay is up to be followed by Pittsburgh. And just look, a glance back at our shoulder quickly again at round one, as there were 3 Florida athletes taken: Lewis Oliver, David Williams, Trace Armstrong. So 11 Florida players taken in the first round in the last 7 years. We've got a trade. Let's check it with Don Weiss.
Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Raiders. The Cowboys have traded the rights to Steve Wisniewski, who they just selected at the top of this round, along with their 6th round pick in this draft, to the Raiders for 3 choices. The Raiders, Washington's pick in the 2nd round held by the Raiders, the 11th position in this round. The Raiders' own 3rd round choice in this draft, and Atlanta's choice in the 5th round held by the Raiders.
So Steve Wisniewski, who was the first selection in this round, the rights to him have been traded to the Raiders. Raiders, you figured they'd be doing something. Again, to recap, Dallas trades the rights to Steve Wisniewski and their own 6th round pick to the Raiders. In return, Dallas will receive from the Raiders a 2nd round selection that they own from Washington, which is the 11th pick. And let's get back for a pick now.
The Raiders have from Atlanta.
A recap of the trade. We'll recap the trade. We are awaiting the Tampa Bay pick, and we'll get that momentarily, to be followed by Pittsburgh as they will go on.
Tampa Bay's 2nd round selection is Danny Peebles, wide receiver, North Carolina State.
Danny Peebles from North Carolina State, who can, yes, fly and then some. Let's take a look at Danny Peebles in action, a young man who can fly, yes, because that is the trait he has flied for so long on the North Carolina State track. Only caught 12 passes his first 2 years, but really has helped himself of late, and this is a guy who can run under 4.40.
He's been running 4.3s, Bob, and one thing about Peebles, he became a lot more consistent catching the football this year, was the primary deep threat for NC State. Obviously, they had Naz Worthen working opposite him, which really helped his cause, but really came on stride. A great week of practice prior to the Senior Bowl, and that really solidified a position for him in the 2nd round. He was only projected, Bob, as a middle round pick going into the year.
Just before that selection, Kansas City needs quarterbacks. Well, they need a winning quarterback. They've got plenty of quarterbacks. They took Mike Elkinson. He will join Steve DeBerg, Ron Jaworski, Danny McManus, Steve Slayton in camp. The young man now from Wake Forest, drafted by the Chiefs.
The big, strong-armed kid, pocket passer, great release. Throws everything from the ear, very accurate in the intermediate areas. Also has the arm strength to get the ball down the field effectively. Really late in the year, when you saw him in the All-Star games, he didn't perform that well, but he had a tired arm. He had been going since July, throwing the football through the All-Star games. It was just too much. He was in a system at Wake Forest which really didn't take advantage of his skills, but Mike Elkins is a fine prospect down the road.
He's a young man who had been through a number of different offensive coordinators, and so he's had a checkered career as far as getting onto a single track, but right now he has been selected. We're going to recap that trade for you just one more time and then move along. Dallas trades the rights to Steve Wisniewski and their own 6th round pick for the Raiders' 2nd round pick, which they own by virtue of a deal, the Jay Schrader deal, which is the 11th pick in this round. So if you're scoring with us at home, the number 11 hole in this round, 39 overall, Dallas will pick there. And also they will get the Raiders' own selection